Straw, welcome to the podcast, man. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. A little bit of background. Straw, we met probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when you were cutting my hair.
Yeah.
And I guess in the field of being a barber, it's probably got a little bit of similarity to some of the fitness world in that you got to have the gift of the gab and you're there to have some chats. And we found ourselves twisting and turning on some really interesting conversations, which I've enjoyed, which is, I guess, ultimately what's brought us here today to get into it, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I feel like if you, like, there's your job, and then if you want to go that, like, little bit extra mile, like, you could be a PT and just telling people to do the exercises. But if you want to connect with someone, you try to get deeper, want to get to know them.
100%.
So, yeah, like, it's the perfect, because it's not like I became a barber because I was like, you know, like, yeah, I like cutting hair, but it was like that intimate conversation, like that community that you can create from like a space. And I think it's like pretty similar to a gym as well, and like what you created as well here.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's obviously something that's very universal that you can take anywhere with you too.
For sure. I've gotten to travel to like 3 different countries cutting hair, which I'm pretty happy about. Like, I lived in the Netherlands for a while. I got to go to New Zealand. And then whenever I've traveled, I've just like, you know, cut hair randomly along the way.
And you've done them in mid-doofs as well sometimes.
Yeah, dusty dance floor haircuts. Yeah.
Some of your finest work, no doubt.
100%.
Mate, where are you originally from? You're not originally from Australia, are you?
Yeah, well, I was born in Melbourne in Thomastown.
Yeah.
My mum is Italian, my father's Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, mainly like my parents split when I was really young, so I was like predominantly raised by like my nonna and nonno.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like mixed culture, everything. It was weird, like, you know, with my Italian side, they're like, you're Egyptian. When I'm with my Egyptian side, they're like, you're Italian. And then I might go to school in Melbourne and they're like, where are you from? You don't look Australian. And it's like this weird.
Was that ever problematic or bothering?
I guess like for my own like sense of where do I fit in the world, I always found like never really fit anywhere in particular. And I guess maybe that's what drew me into like, you know, being in a barbershop in a community. Because like I felt a little bit out of place wherever I was. And, you know, finding music or trying to find my own community, I definitely was always like something I looked for, because like it was always a little bit of everything. But then I realized like I'm a little bit of everything anyway, and I'm my own self. But definitely when I was younger, like even because I was mainly raised I lived with my mum and my sister, so I didn't see my dad as often. So then like struggling to find like being a pretty feminine guy, even though I'm straight, but just because I was around women all the time. And then, you know, looking for like trying to like, I would say only pretty recently realizing that, you know, I am masculine and I am feminine also. And I'm, with all my things, just a little bit of everything. And like, you know, I've only started training like in the last few years because I realized like it's, you know, feels good to move and lift weights and, you know, box and stuff. Where,
100%.
Where like I never was interested in exercising as a kid because, you know, I grew up with like the Muzz phase. So the only people that went to the gym were people who were shredding for Stereosonic.
I was going to say was and I feel like that probably is a bit of a deterrent for a lot of people. Sometimes that kind of jock, kind of stereotype in a way, like you said, that you maybe felt like you struggled to find your place and where you're fitting in. Do you still feel like that?
No, not at all. It was definitely like, I think like most kids go through that though, you know, especially when you're a teenager, you're like not quite an adult, not quite a kid, you're like in between.
Yeah.
You know, you're coming into your body, but there's still so much in the world that you don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're sort of stepping into that like early part of adolescence there, when you are meant to be sort of trying to form your identity and it is all a little bit volatile, and you've probably got a greater need for that sense of belonging than perhaps, well, me personally, than where I do now. And if anything, bro, you know, you've described yourself as someone who's quite unique there, and in fact that was probably my earliest appreciation for getting to know you, you know what I mean? Like,
thanks,
it's good to meet people that aren't just the same as everyone else, and if anything, I think it's a good thing. I like to not feel like I belong, and probably almost in a direct opposition to yours in a way is that being someone who was always, I guess, always maybe would fit perfectly into the stereotype that I just described of the jock that you want to probably not be around, is that because that's what's very visible, that's what you get labelled as and think, oh, he's just a gym bro, and there's actually nothing more to the depth of personality in a way.
Yeah, well, I think that's what made me appreciate ballroom because, I don't know, I think like, well, school's a weird place, I think, for everyone.
Fucking oath.
So like, you know, you're like told to fit into a box, and then if you don't quite fit in the box, kind of left on the outskirts. And then, you know, school's meant to be the representation of preparing you for life. And then you're meant to be like, and then, you know, I was like hating school because I was like, fuck, is this what the world's going to be like?
Well, for somebody who's a pretty free thinker.
Yeah, definitely.
No wonder it didn't go so smooth.
And then, you know, they're like, oh, these are going to be the best years of your life. And I'm like, hope not.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but then they're, you know, they're treating like children still, but then they're also saying, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, that's a pretty fucking big question to ask someone who is still trying to work out their, you know, where they fit. And then, you know, I remember when I finished school, I was like, oh my God, there's a big wide world out there, and I felt really good. And, you know, those like stereotypes that are created, they're just like something that it's not real. Like, you know, you may have qualities of whatever, but you're still like an individual person. And then what I like, you know, I grew up north side and I was like, I'm never going south side ever. I was like that person. And then I like moved down here, started working in Pran. And then I met all these people and I'm like, wow, people are just people. And there is no, even though there is like a little stereotype, but people, you know.
Do you think people try and be that stereotype because they are north side maybe? Like there's an element of that?
I think there is, but there isn't. Because like I feel like you could, you know, I'm sure you would feel when you sit down with anyone, someone from a complete, you can find common ground with anyone.
For sure.
So like I think, like, you know, I've had some like pretty, you know, I would consider myself like centre left on my political views or whatever. And then I would sit down in like the barber chair with some like really far right wing thinkers. And after we like talking about, you know, different things about the world, we both realised that even though we have different opinions, the only reason why we care is because we care, or we're having a conversation, is because we actually care about the world. So that's like a common ground. Because if neither of us cared, we wouldn't even have an opinion. So we both come from like a sense of compassion, I guess, like by having an opinion.
And man, that's interesting. Like I don't want to go down this path yet. I actually want to stay with the education stuff for a second. But it was again one of the reasons that appealed to me to actually get you on is because, you know, for those that follow me, they know that on the occasion I poke some fun at the vegan community more for their nutritional aspects. But it's a perfect example of you and I having opposing views. But that's okay. We can still get along. 100%. We can still be friends. We can still have a conversation. I don't think you're a bad person just because you have a different belief or choice of what you put in your mouth. And I think then we need more of that. Everybody, especially after the last couple of years that we've been through, if you have a different view, wow, just the axe comes down. You know?
No, but I prefer to surround myself with people who are different from me. If I wanted to hear the same thing, I'll just talk to a wall.
If you stay around the same people that have always got the same views, then all you're going to have is a bunch of yes men that just came to validate your own opinion and never challenge it, and you're going to, I guess, stay the same, mate. You're never going to evolve. With school, did you find that there was a lot of fear mongering there as well?
For sure. I went to a Catholic school.
Okay.
So, you know, they, I guess like, it was a very strange school because like, I guess like, well, I didn't really I only went to like one school, but like it was like, you know, got to wear the uniform, got to do this, got to tick your box, like, and then even like, you know, I was really fat as a kid too, so like bullying and all that crap, but it was just like I think like the point where like they wouldn't teach certain topics because of like religion. And then like trying to just like rule you with fear, which is just like not helpful or anything at all like that.
The future of school and education is what scares me a little bit when...
Would you have kids?
Well, that's what I mean, manifesting the prospect of having children, which is something that I'd like to have in the next couple of years. But it is, it's a scary thought. Fuck, what am I going to do from a education point of view? Because, again, when we look at, I guess, the rights or the power that's being given to the education system to basically influence, your children's beliefs and views, it's a little bit scary if you don't necessarily agree with it as well. And I think when you look at, I could speak to my experiences at that age. I probably listened to my peers more than my parents anyway.
100%. Yeah, I definitely did. Well, I felt like, being given an answer to do a thing, but without an explanation. Do this. Why? Because I said so. Because I'm the authority. Where's like your conversation? There's no room for conversation.
Hang on 1 second. Bronson, shut up, mate. You've been a sook and I can hear you crying through the headphones.
What's wrong?
You can just see dogs over in the park.
That's okay.
Sorry, continue. Where were we? Schooling, influence.
Yeah, I definitely listen to my peers more than them, but there's like no room for conversation whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I think I would, if I had children, I don't think I'm going to have children. I don't think I'd be a great parent. And plus, I don't think I can find anyone I would want to reproduce with.
I struggle to accept that from you. Why do you think you wouldn't be a good parent?
I don't know. I think with my goals and what I'm trying to do, and what I hope to do in the future and the type of person I would want to be, I would want to completely give myself to that. And if you have a kid, your kid becomes your world. Mm-hmm. And maybe one day I would...
So maybe just not now. Maybe it might be 10, 20 years.
I always thought maybe adopt, I might meet my kid or something. I might be put, but I don't think I'm not, it ends here.
That's fine. So what are those goals? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do with it?
Well, I've worked, because I used to be a disability support worker and did a bit of youth work and stuff. And that was what drew me towards barbering, because I felt that it's a babysitting program. Mm-hmm. And you're just kind of looking after people until they're old enough, they get chucked into the system and they become a number. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of changed a little bit, but I just felt I didn't like being under a blanket of especially under government or whatever. And then I thought of a barbershop, and I saw this cool video of a barbershop, and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. People come in, they talk, and I think for young men who don't have male role models, mm-hmm. or just to be around a friendly, positive, masculine environment too. And even in barbershops, there are women as well. But I think I only talk from my experience, growing up, wishing that I had a bit more open conversation, because I think with my upbringing.
But don't you think that's exactly what could make you a really good parent?
Yeah, but then I would
have that open conversation and give them that safe space.
But I feel if I had this shop, I would want to be the type of person that can be if anyone needs anything, you call me, I come running. If I have a kid, that's not happening. My kid's always going to come first. And I've I think as much as I love my my family and my upbringing, but because they were really strict and culture, I had to keep so much of my personal life a secret. When you're getting older, experiment sex, drugs, all that shit. I'd put myself in really hectic situations, and then I wish I had an adult where I could be man, I fucked up.
Yeah,
I need help.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I can relate to that for sure.
Which in a way I'm grateful for, that I had to work it out myself. But then when I looked, there were some lessons I didn't have to learn. It would have been really nice because then that created really weird, fucked up issues. And then, if I just had someone that I could be hey, do you think this is a good idea? And not have someone yell at me. But I think that's what our generation will be. So if you were talking about being a parent, I would probably homeschool my kids, to be honest. I would probably get I would have a English and maths tutor.
Yeah.
Because that's important, for them to learn, get them to be really articulate. Maths, computers, get them personal tutors, and get them to do social things with other kids, fun, sport, whatever.
Mate, I feel you so hard on that. It's just, again, I think in my experience, when I've even mentioned the idea of homeschooling to, an authority figure, maybe that even is my parents, over, the last maybe 5 years, when, just exploring the idea, it often gets met with a no script of, no, the kids need this and this and this. But again, I just think you look at the curriculum of what actually is being taught, and they're actually, you said it yourself before, they feel like, what do you want to do in the world? And that's meant to be the representation of being prepared for life. But I feel like it's almost the polar opposite. It's preparing you to be a worker that doesn't have their own ideas and way of thinking.
Have you seen that TED Talks by Sir Ken Robinson?
No.
It's called The Education System is Designed to Kill Your Creativity. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much just talks about like the hierarchy of the education system, how you have like, like literacy and science and all that's like on the top, and then you have like humanities, and then you have like arts and everything on the bottom. Yep. And he's like, why is like one more important than the other? And he goes, yes, it's important for a kid to know how to like read and write, but it's also important for them to know how to express themselves through art, for like personal things. It's not just about money. And he goes, if everyone went through the education system properly and ticked every box and got A+, he goes, everyone would be like a college professor. And he goes, so you've got this system designed to create college professors, and how many college professors do we really have? He goes, so I would like give them the basics, let them enjoy life.
You need the basics
and
of your English, your science, your maths.
For sure, it's important. And get them to explore the world. Get them to like volunteer, like at a homeless shelter, or where they can like see things and see the world for what it is. And then
I feel like the social interaction is almost the biggest thing that you learn.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is available beyond just the standard schooling system. Yeah. And probably becoming a little bit more popular. Yeah. As time goes by, I think we're still definitely the minority. Yeah. But I feel like it's trending.
I think so. I definitely see, like I've noticed with like people that, I grew up with, some are like more thinking like maybe everything they told us was a lie. And like, I think there's a point with like the adults in your life, you put them on a pedestal, like they're the authority, they're older than me, they know that. And then you get to a point in your life where you're like, well, you're not actually participating in the world anymore. And you're like, you're like retired, where we're watching we're seeing what's happening and the choices. We still will have to like live in the future.
I was just about to say, I feel like the concern isn't so much there for the change because they're cool, they're set up. Yeah. It's not going to be, as problematic for them if they've got,
I think
a security with property, and they don't have to be as concerned with the economy and the difficulty and the price of living and what it actually means to be able to not be stuck on that rat wheel. Yeah. And we've spoken about that before, even when you've been back over in Italy and Europe and stuff, and they discuss the lifestyle and the working hours, and they just think we're crazy because they're over there not living to work.
Yeah, when I would
they do their work and spend their time with their families, and
I would tell them that people in Australia work 5-6 days a week, drive an hour and a half to and from work every day, and then they're like, when do you see your family and friends? And I'm like, you just don't. Like, you don't, you have to. And I think that's part of because we're like in the development phase of our country. We're still like young.
Well, we are. We're still a young country.
We're still, building everything like that. We're growing further and further out. And so we're not we don't have a culture, essentially. Like, that's why I like living in a city. I like living around here. It feels like, even though it's like it feels like a country town.
Because it's diverse.
Yeah. Yeah. And you walk down the street, like Prahran, Windsor, Chapel Street during the day, where it's like all the locals, you walk down, hi, how you doing? Like, they're all the same people. Mm-hmm. Not much of a fan of the nighttime anymore, but like the daytime, it's nice. It's a real community. You go out to the suburbs, like on a shopping centre, white, sterile, big brands, like I hate big brands, like small local business, like, not just like bombarded this shit that's like, made overseas in some sweatshop, and they're pouring all the toxic chemicals into go where you go to a business and you see the boss behind the counter, and when you give money to the business, you're like giving it directly to them.
Do you think there's been, with lockdowns and things like that, not a paradigm shift, not as extreme as that, but just more of a conscious thought for people to support local since? Or do you think it was very short-lived and has been forgotten?
I think it's been a bit, people have forgotten a little bit, to be honest.
People forget quick, don't they?
Yeah, like, at the barbershop I worked at, everything's gone up, and we've increased the prices of haircuts, because all the barbers' rent has gone up too.
Yep.
And
I think they said the cost of living in Australia has gone up 24% since the start of COVID.
My rent has gone up to a quarter of my monthly wage. It's not fucked. And I live in a shared house. And my boss increased the prices so we can get paid more.
Yeah.
That's how small businesses work.
And mate, it's been hard because even as a business owner, I get it. I've got huge amounts of deferred payments of rent and stuff that's coming up that kind of has me, spinning my wheels just
trying to
for the next, for that timeline until we're back on the sort of even space. And it's everybody, it's almost to be expected that you're going to increase your prices.
Definitely.
But then I also have this maybe a moral discomfort within me knowing that, we are already a higher priced gym because of its sort of unique model in being quite exclusive and restricted to a capped number of members and things like that. And, everyone's already struggling to then go increasing the prices again. It's like when I'm looking at the space of exercise, fitness and training, there's already so many psychological barriers and lifestyle barriers for people to make positive change, to make the cost of that entry even higher. It's something about it feels wrong for me. But in the same time, I guess, all of these problems come with solutions. Yeah. And that's where I guess I've tried to create the app to be able to deliver my services to a greater level of people with a much more affordable kind of reach. You know what I mean?
But I think people are starting to realize that, when I started training and I was looking at memberships, and I'll talk to my housemate and she'll be like, "Oh, that's $30 a week. That's expensive." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I still drink 3 espresso martinis."
It's all perspective, isn't it?
And I'm like, $30 is a week for your health. Yep. For something that's positive for you, or whatever, or however much, even if it's $100 a week. You wouldn't, if you went out for a dinner, couple drinks, you wouldn't bat an eye spending $200.
Exactly, same thing. For anything that's sort of superficial, you need that new t-shirt for the weekend or whatever, you'll do it without blinking.
But then when it's something that's for your health, you second guess it. Or
I feel like that's tied in a little bit with kind of this instant gratification dopamine model, in that we as a society, I believe, have become less and less patient because everything has become so accessible through technology. And I've spoken about this, a few times on podcasts and things, where it's you used to want to, meet someone and find a intimate partner. You had to go introduce yourself. You had to say, "Hey, can we go take you out for dinner? I'll pick you up on Friday night at 8. You'd go see them, and then you might not see them again for a week. These days, you're just swiping right. If you wanted to, have food, we used to have to farm. We used to have to grow crops. And produce your food. Now you're just entering an Uber Eats. You want to watch a movie, Netflix, Stan. You used to have to at least wait till it came out of the movies and wait in line. And it's so now there's this kind of unrealistic expectation that if we want something, we can have it pretty much immediately with the click of our fingers. But the human body and your health is the one thing that technology is not going to be able to bullshit.
But I think that's with capitalism, in the sense everything is becoming a commodity. Sex, it's just a commodity. It's lost its value. Everything's just got a price tag on it, or everything is about your convenience and quick and stuff. But nothing is when you'd watch a TV show every week, you'd have to sit there, watch it. It would come on TV. Now they just put 20 episodes and you just sit there binge watching. Or I'm guilty of that. I do that too. But everything's just about consuming. It's got no purpose. I've been listening to find really interesting political systems and stuff, and a lot of people have been talking about communism on some things that I flowed through, which I don't agree with communism. I'm not a capitalist, but I think like if there should be like, why not a new political system? Why not realizing that?
Yeah, I heard Joe Rogan say it once that it's just, when are we going to realize that it's kind of a stupid idea to be having this popularity contest with one person that's fucking making all these decisions?
Because then even looking at our politics, like, you know, they're like, oh, we can vote, we can do this. And it's like, oh, we have two options really. And like, you know, even if...
Which are probably all much one and the same.
Definitely.
When it comes down to the crux of the crux.
For sure. When you got lobbying, like, you know, you have the foreign investors donating to our politicians to run their election, which is like, yeah, it was pretty funny. I was looking at how the ancient Greeks made democracy, and you had like the aristocrats and the democrats, and the aristocrats were like the liberal, like the rich people, and the democrats were like the labor workers and stuff, and they wanted to have no voting because they realized that voting, people can be swayed and all that, and it was like, you know, luck of the draw, so everyone put their name in a hat, and they pull out a name, and that person's serving for that term, which, because they knew that voting can be, you know, manipulated, and it can be, so, you know, you've got random companies donating, which is a bribe. You can call it a donation, but they bribed politicians, and then that politician, to have a career, because I don't believe people are inherently bad. I think they're just trying to make do, and they're in their situation, and, you know, I feel like if you get into politics, you get in because you're like, I want to make a difference. Like, I'm not good.
You might have entered with good intention.
Yeah, exactly. But then you end up having to make a lasting career.
But then do you think there's maybe some people in politics that, how do I word this? Yeah, they've gone in with perhaps good intention, but also they then seize that opportunity to make up for the lack of power they had, or the way that they were treated, because really power will show you the true character of a person, because it can corrupt. Definitely,
but they could even be... it might be like a pure arrogance point of view. Like, I'm doing this for the greater good. I think I'm better. Like, I'm better than
like
I know.
Sense of righteousness, and superiority.
I'm smarter than you. I know what's best. And whether they think about like the economy or whatever, but
that's the bit that you know, and that's a nice segue into that topic. Actually, that's the bit that frustrates me a little bit about some of the laws and the legal system that's trying to tell you what you should and should be allowed to do, provided it's, you know, not obviously influencing and affecting other people, and what risks you should be allowed to take, you know, and obviously I'm kind of talking about drugs there. And before we even started recording, you shared with me that you've been 4 months sober now, and we were just talking about Chapel Street, and you know, you alluded to not being as much of a fan of the nighttime scene anymore. And yeah, man, tell me a little bit about that. What's been your journey over the last 4 months that's led you to sobriety? And
I just realized that like, I'm not going to achieve what I want to achieve if I continue living the way I'm going to be living. And I would never necessarily, like, because I've always loved my job. And no matter what I did at night, I would always come to work. But it got to a point where I was like, you know, how much money am I wasting? Who am I interacting with? And like, you know, I'm not putting it off the table that maybe I'm never going to drink for the rest of my life. I'm not going to, you know, it's like a day by day thing. But like, for now, I'm definitely feeling like, you know, I like need to be focusing on my health. And I think that also comes into, you know, like we're talking about kids when we were younger. And when I was younger, I was like, all this was like new and exciting. And I was like, this is the best. You know, fucking drinking or smoking weed or taking drugs or whatever. And I think that, like, I'm grateful for all my experiences, because, you know, for me, that was like the first indicator, like, maybe the law isn't always right. Like, you know, I smoked a joint and I'm like, I didn't die. Oh my God, they lied about me.
You didn't spiral into it.
I, like, you know, took a pill and I went out and I danced for hours and I had the best time, you know, so much fun. But then because, like, you know...
And how much of it can we see that? I think one of the most purest examples of that is, you know, the demonization of any psychedelic, particularly with LSD and stuff. It was probably more in the 60s and things like that when it was kicking off, and just saying how you were stupid if you were doing it. Now it's only just finally catching up, and in the sort of the science space and, you know, the nutritional and medical space, you know, the profound effects that are being found from, you know, post-traumatic stress disorders, mental health, depression, anxiety from single microdoses of psilocybin.
Definitely.
which is great. And of course, those things need to be handled with due responsibility and care.
For sure. Well, I think that's like the major issue with it being illegal. By, because say if like I like wanted to take, because even they're finding MDMA with post-traumatic stress also, or helping cancer patients to like towards the end.
To find comfort with their idea of mortality and things.
And if you're like, say if you're going through that experience, then you don't have a doctor to prescribe that to you or to give that to you. You're relying on some drug dealer.
Yep.
And the only issue with making drugs illegal or making anything illegal is you're not stopping it happening. You're just making it dangerous for the people who want to do it. So,
exactly. You're not going to stop.
No.
And let's be serious. If the government really wanted drugs to not be here, they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But they're involved.
Definitely.
100%.
For sure. Well, because like the whole world loves cocaine. You've got Mexico and Colombia owned by drug dealers.
Yeah.
And, you create criminals when you make things illegal. You have like, if there's like gang violence or whatever, if that would all disappear if drugs were legalized and controlled, because then you have no criminals. You think people are going to be gangsters for fun? No, they do it for money and they do it for a job, and they're providing a service to people who want to need. But if they like made everything, like they try to, because I think it was like in the 1930s when, like, I find like the first generation very like interesting, because like at one point in time, you used to be able to go to the chemist and buy like heroin tea, and cocaine was in Coca-Cola, and there were all these like normal remedies and things at the chemist, and then one day the government was like, nah, it's all legal. We're going to get rid of it. And then you had like a dependency of people who were, this was like their medicine. And then all of a sudden it was like taken away. And they were the ones that struggled the most. And then,
well, I see that I've got a family friend who, we didn't speak for nearly 10 years, and recently sort of connected. I actually really want to get him on the podcast sometime, but he has a story very similar to that, in that he was involved with sport just like I, developed chronic pain through his back and his spine, and he was prescribed opiates, so endones and those kinds of drugs, and before you know it, they're no longer prescribing him, and he has an addiction. So basically the heroin's basically the same shit. And found himself down that really scary path. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And has gone through the ringer.
And with stuff like that, it's not just like, it's hard. You have like physical withdrawals. Like your body is like calling to it. Like, you get it's like filling your body, and then you get really ill. It's not something you can just stop overnight. And then like understanding with the people that generally are like addicted, they're not like addicted to a substance, because, you can try alcohol and not get addicted. Sure. Like understanding like what addiction is at the start. You're like dealing with like a mental trauma that you're trying to, or a trauma that you're trying to run from. Yeah. So by making drugs illegal, it's not fixing the problem. Yep. You need to like address each, but it's like very difficult for doctors to be, because there's not a one fix answer.
No, it's a complex issue.
Yeah,
100%. It can't be something that can just go, all right, it's no longer illegal.
Yeah,
because that will come with its own problems as well.
But at least like if they make it legal.
Because what's the difference? There's legalization and decriminalization.
So legalization is where it's legal to sell, and like, you would have a shop like say in America or the Netherlands or Canada where you can go to like a weed dispensary. Like a dispensary.
Well, they've got a couple of them in Australia now.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So they've got...
If you have but you need a card.
You need to have a prescription.
Yep.
But, and I think that's a good move. Like,
baby steps.
Again, don't... Like, any drug. Yeah. Whether it's legal, illegal, fucking caffeine is a drug. Yeah. So most people do drugs. They're just under this umbrella of disillusion that they're not doing anything bad. But they all come with consequences. But at the same time, I almost feel like when we look at THC and CBD and those things being illegal, it goes, well, if they weren't illegal and they were accessible, how many things could that replace that are currently prescribed from the pharmaceutical industry, whether it be, sleep issues, anxiety, pain, all probably the top sellers from Big Pharma.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they would it's almost like that's where you start to think like they don't want, like this is like an obvious answer that would fix this problem, and it's like, why are they taking so hard? And that's my issue with like democracy. For a law to change, it can take ages, and it's like, how many people need to suffer for these old people just to like realize like the science is there that will support this? Because like my mom, she's got terrible arthritis, and I've been trying for ages to tell her CBD oil will be good. She's like, I'm not taking marijuana, but then she's on like pain relief medication.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you'd rather take that but not take this? Like, why?
Which is that perception we're talking about.
The generation difference. But like, legalization would be that decriminalization means like, which say in Portugal, they decriminalized all drugs.
That meaning like if you're caught possessing drugs, you're not going to jail.
Yeah, if it's personal use.
Yeah.
It's okay. But if you're a drug dealer, then that's wrong. But they changed their whole stance on drugs.
But I was going to bring up Portugal because that's probably the greatest example of where that's been changed. But how long ago? Nearly probably 10 years?
No, a bit longer. And they changed their laws because I think it was like something ridiculous. Like 3% of the entire country was addicted to heroin. And I think it was maybe like 14.
Is that a lot? That's a lot. Yeah.
That's like, let's say if, you have...
What would Australia or America be?
I don't know. Well, I think like in the scale of thing, like if
you think about that, how much that actually
like if you had a million, if you had a million people, 3% of a million is like
what is it?
300.
How's our math? No, of a million, 300,000 for 30,000.
30,000.
Yeah,
that's still a lot of people. So that's just in a million.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's just 3 in 100. Yeah, that's a lot of heroin users.
And then if you have to say that in a whole country, like that's a lot. And then it was like to a point where people were then like, then the heroin was really bad. They were like cutting like
fentanyl,
or even concrete in it, and then people injecting concrete into their arm.
Oh, you're kidding!
As a mixer, and then their blood was clotting up, and they're having to get amputated limbs. It just got to and they tried like a more militant approach where they were just like going into smack houses and like beating up, people. And then they're like, you know what, maybe we need to change our approach. And they decided to give like clean, good heroin, and they found that. And you'd go to like a clinic, a nurse would do it to you, they'd watch you, make sure you're okay, and people would go in there and they would say, I would have like whatever the amount that they would normally have.
So a bit like the safe injecting rooms that we've
definitely.
got here in Victoria Street and
Richmond,
Flinders. Is there still one in Flinders?
I think so.
Yeah,
but they would find when they would get like good heroin, like the stuff that the doctor was making, they couldn't handle it. They're like, "Whoa, that's too much." And after like a certain amount of time, they found that they were reducing the amount that they were taking because they didn't need it. Because like if you're given it to safely and in a good environment, you won't overdose. It's like when you're trying to cause harm to yourself, or if the drugs are bad and you don't actually know what you're putting in your body.
It's interesting even just how we as a society have labelled some things as we accept that, but we don't accept that. So because heroin is most commonly probably injected through a needle, we have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But cocaine is done about as casually as having a beer on a Friday night in Melbourne these days.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just, it's another whack.
Yeah, it's like weird how our brain, I think like TV has something to do with that too. Like when you see cocaine on TV, it's always just like rich people doing it.
It's been glamorized, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I know.
Which is crazy because, again, like, it's by far the most commonly used drug in Melbourne, and it is glorified. And I personally hate it.
Yeah,
it makes me an introvert. Yeah. It makes me anxious. Yeah. It shuts down all my sort of social exploration, and almost, to be honest, makes me want to go to bed.
Yeah.
But people do it, and I believe that more people than are willing to admit it feel the same.
I think so.
But they just don't want to admit it because it's seen to be cool.
Yeah. It's like, and the whole thing of like, if you're out, go to the bathroom with your friends, do a line, and it's just like, so you can just, and then anything that you need something to help you with. Like, if you need to be drunk to enjoy cocaine, or you need to like, because like I find it, I would only enjoy it if I was drunk.
Sure, different.
But, yeah. Because then it's like balancing me out. But if I was just doing cocaine, everyone gives me the shits. I just sit there like, that person's really annoying me over there. Like, I'm like getting real like antsy. But no, I stopped going out purely because I was like, what? Like, I'm just to do this like repetition and insanity of like, you know, and I think that's like a bit of our culture. You work Monday to Friday, bust your ass, and then, you know, go out on the weekend and numb the pain from your existence.
And, you know, booze, you know, again, if we talk about Australian culture or lack thereof, perhaps like how big is boozing it up in Australian culture, but just to our point of what we're talking about, because it's legal, people don't, you know, look at it with any concern. But if we compare the, you know, the health implications, it's probably one of the worst. And if it comes to addiction, it's almost the most dangerous to withdraw from. You'll die.
Well, the reason why like alcohol is legal and all the other ones are because like the illegal version of alcohol is moonshine. And when alcohol was illegal, they had like moonshine distilleries and people were dying left, right and center because it's
from moonshine.
Yeah. Because
what's the history of moonshine? What is just very pure,
just like
strong alcohol.
Pure alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'd like to try it though.
It's pretty hectic.
You've tried it?
Yeah.
Homemade?
Yeah.
Brewed?
Yeah. Like one of my friends overseas, his dad made it.
Do you just drink it straight, or do you put it with something?
Like, we had like just straight, but like after it's like
be like fire,
like pure diesel, like
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. Like you definitely feel like a little sip, but if you alcohol poisoning,
is it? Would you say that the high and the effect is the same as alcohol, but obviously
it's like drunk,
much quicker?
Yeah, much quicker because it's like
because of the purity and the strength of it all.
But and then like whenever they made drugs illegal, they made, you know, then the drug dealer or whoever is trying to make it as strong and as compact as possible. Because like say when heroin was legal, it was like a tea, and when cocaine was legal, it was in a drink. So them making it illegal actually made it more dangerous and like worse for everyone to consume. So it literally makes no sense.
I wonder sometimes with cocaine, how much of the leaf, the cocoa leaf, is actually contributing to the high. When you look at the production process with, you know, acetone, cement, everything that goes into actually making, you know, like how much of that leaf is actually left doing
not much.
What is doing.
Especially
you know
by the time it comes from Colombia all the way to Australia anyway.
And mate, that's the thing that I can't get my head around is like Australia probably has the highest cocaine price in the world because it's so far away from its origins. And, you know, for the common person on the street, you're probably paying $350 for 0.4 of a gram because only it's bagged in a 0.8.
Yeah, and then it's
cut at least 50% creatine.
Yeah.
You know, it's madness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. But I think it's like the social thing. Like I found.
That's what I mean. It's so candor.
Like I stopped going out, and well, one, it's been good. I've saved so much money.
Yeah,
it's been awesome. But two, my life has no drama, and like you know.
I was going to say, how's your mental health for making those changes?
Yeah, I worry that I'm never going to be. I haven't gone to any social events yet because like I don't think I'm ready for it.
Do you feel anxious about the idea?
Yeah, like I went on Friday. My friend was at Lucky Cock, and I was there for like an hour, and I'm like, but I think it was just like I don't know how to talk to everyone. Was really fucked.
It's hard to walk into any situation when people are on a very different level.
Yeah,
to you.
and they're like, and I'm like, just don't touch me.
Do you feel like there's a bit of a daunting reality, perhaps, that there's certain people that you used to associate and be social with all the time, and you're coming to realize that those relationships are only built on the foundation of being fucked up and beyond being fucked up together, which is good fun. But how much do you really have in common?
Well, the big eye-opener for me that made me, I caught up with like an ex-girlfriend of mine, like, and this was like the day after I saw her was the day I went sober, because like she was like the ex, like, oh, maybe I still love her or whatever, or I don't know, we had a really toxic drug-fueled relationship. And then like, you know, she were like going to catch up, it'd been years, and I remember sitting there and talking to her, and I'm like, wow, I feel nothing towards you and you're actually annoying me. And then she was still the same, and I was like, what? And I was just sitting there going, what was I attracted to? And I'm like, oh yeah, I was really high the whole time. Like, and then I was like, oh, the foundation of her and my relationship was like getting really fucked up and having crazy sex, and which is fun, like fine, but that's not like a good foundation for that. And then after seeing her, and then I thought, wow, since I was like, you know, 18, the foundation of all my friendships and most of the people in my life is going out and getting fucked up. And I don't want to. I feel bad saying that because like those people aren't bad people.
There's no judgment,
and everyone's like on their own journey and doing their own thing. And just just because I'm doing one thing, I might not even necessarily be correct. And but I'm taking it like my moment in my life and like what I need to do and what I need to achieve. Like this is like I just need to take a step back.
So what actually was the straw, if you don't mind,
None at all,
that actually broke the camel's back there that gave you that decision to make a change?
It was honestly after seeing her and then like just thinking, well, I've been just partying.
So it was kind of like
long.
a bit of a mirror.
It was a bit of a mirror because she is that, but I used to be into that, and I'm a little bit like that too. Like I'll party and do all this stupid shit, and I was like, what am I? If I don't take a real hard look at myself, all my dreams, everything I want to achieve, they're just going to be pipe dreams, and I want to be, and work. I'm so grateful for where I work. Like my boss, she's so calm, she's so lovely.
Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki's
She's
the
a
best.
legend.
Oh
Yeah.
man, she's dealt with me on all levels of all my shit, and she's just this calm, strong. She's the boss, and she works harder than everyone else. And she's someone who I really, really admire, and I would love to have like a business like hers one day, and like the community. At a barbershop's like turnover rate is like 1 year. I've been there for like 4 years. Like, everyone in that shop has been there for over 2 or 3 years.
Jake's back now too,
Jake's
isn't he?
back
Because
as
he was
well,
over
yep.
in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good little crew in there.
Yeah. And she doesn't like rule us with like an iron fist. Like, if if I'm off like the other week, I was just like my moods were a bit up and down because like I was, like back in training, dealing with other shit. Just means sleep, not good friends. I can't sleep properly.
What's going on with your sleep cycle? How's that? Just insomnia, struggling to get to sleep?
Like I've quit smoking weed even longer than 4 months, but I think I've relied on weed for like 14 years of my life to help me sleep. So
And it's interesting, like again, I sort of even mentioned it before that the marijuana could play a place in helping people with insomnia or sleep issues and replacing that from things like Valium or Xanax or whatever it may be.
Definitely.
That I think is a better choice. But at the same time, we need to understand that it's the quality of sleep. You might conk out, but you're in much more of a place of sedation, and we often don't experience our REM sleep, which is, our dreaming activity, which is an integral part to, I guess, our overall mental health development and well-being, because in many ways that dream sleep plays a role in allowing us to re-experience traumatic events without the adrenaline secretion, which somewhat takes air out of the tires in terms of its severity when we remember it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
have you found that since coming off or stopped smoking weed, you've had a big influx of dream activity?
Yeah, definitely. Like very randomly. I wish I should start writing them down, but like because I can't sleep longer than like 3 hours in a stretch, and then I wake up, and then like I have like a kind of dream when I first wake up. So say if I go to bed at like midnight, I'll wake up at 3, and then it takes me a while to go back to sleep, and then I'm like in a daze, and I like kind of have a dream then I'm in a daze, and then I wake up.
Are you using anything to try and supplement to improve your sleep?
I tried melatonin, didn't work.
Especially after someone who's had a history with drug use. It's like, fuck off, mate. With the melatonin, you might as well give me a Tic Tac.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what the doctor gave me Zopiclone, which is like, I don't know, sleep drug. It just made me feel shit as in the morning. Like
You probably, because do you have issues getting to sleep or more just staying asleep?
bit of both.
Bit of both.
Yeah. I think like I'm trying to like, I pretty much plan my whole day hoping that I get to sleep at night. Like I wake up, meditate, go to work, finish work, go to the gym. I think I'm eating dinner too late.
That can affect your sleep for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, I'd recommend to be trying to finish your last meal 2 hours before you probably want to go to bed and sleep.
Okay, true.
That's
I'll
a big
take
one.
that note, and then I'm
And-
trying not to look at my phone or TV before I go to bed as well.
Yeah, that's a massive one, because that obviously inhibits the secretion of the melatonin that helps us go to sleep.
Yeah.
But magnesium's probably more responsible for keeping us to sleep. So it's very common that people are like, yeah, I'm already taking magnesium, but we need to understand magnesium is like a family name, and there's a lot of different members of that family that do different things. So have a look. I'll happily send you through a few recommendations for them, but there's glycinate and threonate, which are two forms of magnesium which actually cross the blood-brain barrier, which is going to help have that sort of calming effect and promote deeper sleep for sure. What time are you waking up in the morning? Because good quality sleep starts with morning sunlight exposure.
Yeah. See, during summer, I was up at 6 a.m. at the gym, killing it. Winter came, ruined my routine. Well, went to a music festival, destroyed myself, and ruined my routine.
That'll do it.
Low on iron, low on B12. I had to get infusions, everything, destroyed myself. Then was trying to get back into a routine, and then I just couldn't wake up in the morning. Signed up to a gym. It was just like too big. And then I realized like my whole thing was going, I was like not going because I was like anxious about going to a big space and working out. And I just like canceled my membership, and then I go to see a PT who's got like small gym in his garage, 1-on-1. No, like, he's like, friend, no anxiety.
Comfortable environment.
Yeah, definitely. Because I realized there's like a million reasons why not to go to the gym. And there's only like one reason to actually go to the gym. Because you can come up with so many like excuses.
Yeah, you can tell yourself the story.
Yeah, it's like, it's a little bit raining out there. It's a bit cold.
Mate, it really is, I'm going to come back to sleep in a second, but that's so much of the challenge to go to the gym is just turning up. And, that's why I'm a big advocate of things like saunas and ice baths. Nobody likes getting into an ice bath. But you are making a deliberate choice to do something that you don't want to do. And then you're in there, and every single cell in your body's telling you to get out. And you, by, focusing on the breath, controlling your nervous system, basically training yourself to stay calm in a stressful environment, it's changing your psychology. And then all of a sudden, when we are tired, it's not a matter of discipline, because you're in the habit of doing things that you don't want to do. But that doesn't happen overnight.
No,
it needs a lot of consistency.
Well, I just gave up trying to go to the gym in the morning. I'm like, it's not happening. And I'm like, fine, just go straight after work. But then I finished work.
I find that impossible.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I still struggle with it, but I just like, fuck it, jump on my motorbike, just go straight there, don't even think about it. Because I just wasn't waking up. Now that I'm slowly getting a bit better. Like, I think I'm just not a winter person, man. I want to hibernate.
Life's better when the sun's out, man.
Yeah. So I think like when the weather gets a bit better, I'll start in the morning again.
Have you ever heard of or ever tried mouth taping at night time?
No.
Yeah, it's as simple as what it sounds.
But I feel this is because I'm realizing I'm waking up dehydrated. Like my mouth is dry, and I'm thinking, I put those things up my nose that make
that pull the sinuses apart.
So I have that because I'm realizing I'm breathing through my mouth so much when I'm sleeping.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking.
Okay, is that a thing? You take
mate, it's a thing.
Okay.
It's becoming more known, becoming more studied, more confirmed. Because essentially, and again, if you're waking up with dry mouth, dry lips, all those things, that's probably the biggest telling sign that somebody's a chronic mouth breather. But noses are built for breathing. So not only is there a multi-level filtration system that is operating through the nose, so the fine hairs in our nose, the sinuses, even through the tonsils, the ridges where the nose meets the throat, all of those things are helping produce white blood cells and play a role in our immune system, and obviously taking out air pollutants and microbes and stuff out of the air. So when we're looking at allergies and inflammation, that's all bypassed when we breathe through the mouth. When we breathe through the mouth, that is a parasympathetic, so a fight or flight type response, where breathing through the nose is sympathetic. Hang on, I think I might have got those round the wrong way, but either way, that's rest and digest, calming us down. So on top of that as well, the sinuses are responsible for producing like 60% of the body's nitric oxide. not to be confused with nitrous oxide, which is happy gas and makes you laugh. So the nitric oxide is important for acetylcholine production in our neurotransmitters, vasodilation, blood flow, and that's where it plays a role in like sexual health as well, from being able to maintain an erection.
Sure.
But yeah, not breathing through your nose can have a huge impact on you being able to achieve deep restorative sleep quality. So, of course, we don't want to, if you've got any nasal obstruction, that you don't want to be obviously taping someone's mouth shut. And it's probably a good idea to practice, get comfortable, ease your nerves and stress about this while awake, while reading a book or watching some TV, but using some paper tape, probably fold the end of it. You can get specific ones that are actually made for the lips, but it's little white masking sort of paper tape does the job, but just then you've got a little release tab. And then breathe through your nose while watching TV, and even if somebody's got a little bit,
so like a little while before you go to sleep.
Just to get familiar with it first, to go, oh, I'm going to be okay. Yeah. And even people that have got a little bit of nasal congestion, you'll find that actually regulates pretty quickly. And from there, I will typically try and implement like a 4x4x4 breath. So breathing in for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, holding the exhale for 4 seconds, which has a manipulation or balances the carbon dioxide exchange as well, which buffers your blood. So I don't know, give it a go, man. There's a lot of people have reported great findings from mouth taping.
Yeah, man. It's literally just this morning because I woke up and I was like, man, where's the water? Like parched as. And then I was like, I think I'm just like breathing. And it was the last night I forgot to put the
strip on.
Yeah.
And that'll be in great combination with the
because like I definitely did have better sleep with that one on. But yeah, it's hard trying to just get shut my eye. I'm like, I know as soon as I like lie down, my mind just goes awake. And it was just like something for so long. I just like smoked a joint, chilled out.
Shuts off the thoughts.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
That was probably like the hardest thing because I started smoking like consistently from like 15, 16, then much more regularly as I was like 18 plus, and then it was just like every day, and it was just like such a normal thing. And I think like like drugs becoming legal and regulating and knowledge, like educating people with them, is probably much better than me being some stoner in the suburbs, like just smoking weed with my mates in some car park.
Do you reckon there's like an element like that kids and stuff, we want to try drugs just because we're told we're not allowed to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And 100%. When we stop trying to educate with fear, because I feel like that just backfires massively, because like you said, you get told your whole youth that if you do this, you will be this, or this will happen. Yeah. And then you do that anyway. Yeah. Because that's what kids, teenagers do. And then you realize that's not true. Yeah. And then it's almost like you dive even deeper.
Oh, for sure. For me, it was just like the whole thing, like I was like, they lied about that. What else did they lie about? And I was like raised fairly religious, and like my people who I would say like inspired me the most, and I'm grateful, like, Sam Harris, or
I know their name.
Yeah, he's great. And then like he got me into like meditation.
You'd like Gabor Mate, wouldn't you?
Who?
You don't know Gabor Mate?
No.
Oh, he's
cool.
He's right into, I guess, trauma healing and psychology. Mate, he would be right up your alley. Cool. Spent years and years, I think, in Germany and like underground with all the heroin addicts. And awesome. I'll send you some of his stuff. He's one of my favourite people to listen to. He's got the most soothing voice and good accent to listen to as well. But yeah, he's epic. Well, he talks all about addiction, and it's rooting from trauma.
Well, like when I got into meditating, like that's what got me into trying to make my body physically strong.
How do you meditate? Talk me through your meditation practice.
I do now at the start I was doing like a guided meditation with Sam Harris. He's got it called the Waking Up Podcast, and he offers it for free, or if you can't afford it, or you can pay for it. And I was like, yeah, well, man, like, and I was like, oh, free. And he's like, but if you can't afford it, we do that. And I was like, no, like, you deserve my money. I'm going to pay what? It's like $100 for you. Fuck it. What's $100? And it's like a 30-day thing, 10 minutes every day. And he talks about like, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths. relax your face and like, you know, follow your breath and then spread like your consciousness through your body with like each breath and like, you know, slowly relax your face to your chest, to your stomach, and then just become like aware of your body. That's how I start my meditation. Then he like, I think it's like day 15, he's like, you know, project your consciousness, and I'm like, well, he's up to like,
yeah, I get that.
That's
That's the issue I've had sometimes with the guided stuff is that it's really hard to find somebody's voice who doesn't agitate me, and distract me from it, and then some of it just feels almost becomes a little bit distracting or irrelevant.
Well, I found
do you do breath work?
Yeah, and I do. So that was like, I found mindful meditation like harder to get into. So I do like Wim Hof breathing, and then I meditate afterwards.
How many rounds of Wim Hof do you go through?
I do like 3, where like forced, like every day I'm like, I just got to do 3.
Yeah.
And then if I'm feeling good, I'll do like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But I do that just to like really open up my breath and everything. And then I find, because when you do mindful meditation, you mainly want to be aware of your breath.
Sure.
So once you've done Wim Hof, you're very much aware of your breath. So it's like easier to be calm. But like I definitely have a bit of trauma from like things that I found, like when it's one thing if you've got certain things in your past and you are meditating, as you are like spreading, like becoming calm and everything.
Trauma stored in the tissue.
Yeah. I definitely found a lot of things coming up, and this is why if you can like have someone to like that you like having your like tribe or people that you feel comfortable with that you can talk about your meditation, because I was like doing it all by myself. And then I was like, you know, all this like guilt and things from my past, and I was just like randomly calls like during lockdown as well, randomly calling family. And I was like, oh man, do you remember that thing like, you know, 5 years ago? I'm so sorry about that. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking
But that's
about?
nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But I'd also but also reading the room, like, and also realizing where the forgiveness, like, are you, because like, was I calling to say sorry, or was I calling for a selfish thing to clear my conscience?
Yeah.
And it was like a bit of both, but it was more selfishness. I was like, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to feel better.
Be able to recognize it.
Yeah.
How was it received?
No.
Good and bad?
No, not very good. My auntie, surprisingly, she dealt with it, and we're not, I don't talk to her as often. She actually took it on really well.
Yep.
My sister, not so much. She was just like, what the fuck, you cooked right now? And I'm like, no, I'm really good right now.
I'm actually not cooked. That's why I seem it.
So she was like a little bit weird about it. But yeah, I realized like, you know, doing things like, you know, if and it didn't immediately make me feel better. Like I got it off my chest. But like, you know, real forgiveness needs to come from like within you. You need to forgive yourself. And that's like much harder just because you say the words, because everything, like me, I carry guilt a lot harder. That's why like now I'm especially like, I don't live with any regret whatsoever, because like if I don't do or do something, that will haunt me forever. So like I will just do exactly or say or everything what I feel, because like otherwise I will carry that and I can't deal with that shit. So
I get it. The forgiveness to yourself is really hard. And I try and I'm not very good at it. But I try and find acceptance with the past by believing that they were all the things that I had to actually go through and experience to become who I actually am today and have the perspectives that I do also. And without them, you couldn't be. Yeah.
You wouldn't be where you are now, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still trying. Like I noticed as I was meditating, I could calm. Yeah. I was good up until about my stomach. In my stomach, I held so much tension.
Mate, I'll tell you a story. I had it was in one of the first lockdowns actually, and I was in a bad place. And I've spoken about this on the podcast before. Mentally, I was in a really bad place, so to the point where I was at the hardware store and got caught staring at rope for like 10 minutes. So I was mentally, I was fucked.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that I decided I was going to do a really big heroic dose of psilocybin. And
100%.
Yeah, I did a massive dose of psilocybin and found myself in bed. It had all been planned out, like with sort of a playlist, which was going to be somewhat the shuttle and the journey that carried me. And you know, for the first hour, I experienced a hell of a lot of savagery in my mind, and I was that savage, but through that anyway, it doesn't really matter where the trip went. It obviously turned into a great deal of positivity and acceptance. But you're talking about the discomfort in the body, right? And, you know, I hadn't back then had, you know, I'm not really a massive yogi or, you know, have understood much beyond just my hearing about chakras and stuff like that. And in that moment, I quite literally identified the chakras and the blockages in my body. So I had two places that I could feel it stuck. And again, like I've had some experience with psychedelics, and you hear about ayahuasca and the purging, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to sit there in the bush shitting on myself and spewing on myself. And like, you know, I'm not about that. And was quite, you know, resistant to that idea, but found myself in the bathroom, literally on the can, in the nude, off my head, bathroom next to me, and just letting it rip. But it was those chakras, the trauma that we explained, it's created in the brain, stored in the tissue, and the purging was quite literally getting it out of my body. It was a remarkable experience. And again, from the mental place of what I was in to afterwards, night and day.
Did you feel after that, because I've had psychedelic experiences where the next day I was like depleted.
Wiped.
And it took me a while to recover, like, and then to get back into, because like, you know, I was very confronted with the emotions and things that I felt. So it wasn't like because like, that's me, like tripping in the bush, being, you know, loose. And that's why like it would be amazing, like when you see how they do these like psychedelic therapies now, you know, you have guidance and people you talk to and stuff, and I'm like, that would be amazing. On some level, I've like seen somewhere you're just in a hospital bed and tripping, and there's like a doctor looking at you. I think that would wig me out.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. Yeah,
but like in a healthy environment to like bounce off. But like, you know, I had
with a proper shaman who's
or someone
who's trained to do that.
To because like I remember like the next day I was like really caught up, and I was like, fuck, I've been an idiot my whole life. I've like did this, I'm not going anywhere. And then like, you know, after a little while I was like, oh well, you know, let it go. You know, you don't have to be that same person. You're growing, you're changing. Yeah. If you don't want to do those things, you don't want to feel those things. Today's a new day. But it took me like a while because it's just confronted with all these emotions.
So much. I get what you mean, and again, I've had people come share, just because I've been comfortable to speak publicly about it. I've had people come and share their experiences with me, and it's been a combination of good and bad, and that's why I always speak very carefully about, you know, I'm not here promoting these things, and believe that it has to be handled with due responsibility and care, and it's never something that should be ever pushed upon someone like recreational drugs, for example, doing a line of coke. You know, a lot of people probably feel peer pressured to do a line of coke and they didn't enjoy it, but whoop-de-whoop, an hour later you'll probably be pretty much fine again for the most part. But you are fucking with somebody's consciousness and psyche here, and I think, you know, when we look at it, it's like on average we have 60,000 thoughts per day, with 96% of them being said to be subconscious. And those subconscious thoughts and beliefs are what's been molded over your entire lifetime of, you know, exposure and experience. And if you've never tapped into that subconscious with mindfulness practices, with journaling, with meditation, even with, you know, lower doses of some sort of psychedelic, it could even be weed, it could be, you know, again, smaller doses of this stuff. And now all of a sudden... How
long was your trip?
For hours. Probably about 4 or 5 hours. At least, like really built up over the first hour, probably peak intensity.
Were you like visually hallucinating?
Yeah, massively. I was...
do you feel like it helped, like, if you didn't do that, would you still be staring in the hardware store at the rope, like, or do you think like that
no, I don't think like, again, like, when we look at that, like, you know, I've had my ups and downs with mental health and have been met with suicidal thoughts, I suppose, but I've never really felt possessed by them where I thought I was actually going to go through with it, rather than just finding appeal in the fantasy of going, well, fuck, your problems would be over. You know what I mean? Like, you know, more that kind of place. So I don't think I would be stuck there. No.
But that was like a huge help, though.
But it was a huge help because it replaced a mindset that was filled with scarcity and things that have been taken from me to replace with, okay, what am I grateful for? And I almost more had this, mate, stop complaining, you little bitch. Like, even though your business is shut down right now and you've got financial problems, all this stuff, you got a roof over your head, you got family, you got people who love you. You know, your reality is where you put your attention. Yeah, and it just helped me adjust exactly what my attention and focus point was. Yeah. But you know, it was a super intense experience, and one that, you know, is on brand with the way I do things, diving into the deep end. And it wasn't the first time I'd ever experienced psychedelics before, but I can completely understand that, and would say to people, you're going to probably more likely have a traumatic experience if you don't build yourself up to these things, because it's a hell of a lot of information coming out of a really small hole in a really fast time. And don't be surprised when you get met with some pretty full-on shit and feel like there's a long time to recover from that. Because of how much information there is to process. Hence why I always, in big doses, you know, I feel,
but I also think
you're exhausted after.
For sure. And also, like, telling people, like, you know, I remember one of my friends, he called me, we worked together, and he called me one morning, and he's like, Straw. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I need your help. I'm like, what? It was like 7 a.m. And he's like, I took acid last night, and I can't sleep. Is this, like, normal? And I'm like, did you smoke weed? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you shouldn't smoke weed when you're on acid. It's like got a psychoactive ingredient. It, like, you know, the THC, like, boosts the acid, makes you trip more, and you're not going to sleep. And he was like, I thought it was going to make me sleep. And I'm like, no, it won't make you sleep. I'm like, eat food. Like, that's the other thing with psychedelics. If you eat food and drink orange juice, it, like, takes away the trip a little bit more too.
I'll tell you one thing that's actually said to make the trip better is mangosteen.
Okay, cool.
The fruits.
Nice.
I can't tell you how or why.
Yep.
My friend Lucas Owen, who's a brainiac, he did a post about it once, and I put it to the test. I don't know if it made any difference, but scientifically it sounds legit.
For sure. I'll have to try
Mangosteens.
that.
Yeah, nice fruit too.
Yeah. I'll have to try that one. But yeah, there's like things that can work, either make it harder or take it away.
Well, I think that goes with drugs in general, overall. Because, for sure. And are you familiar with Dr. Carl Hart?
No.
He's a big advocate for the things that we've been talking about today, and you know, he's done TED Talks as well, and he's a big promoter of sort of legalization of drugs and taking away from the idea of anything being good or bad. And he even says that he has a hit of heroin the day before he does a TED Talk, and he's a doctor.
Yeah.
Fuck, where was I going with that? What do we?
How understanding of safety.
Oh yeah, and you know, I heard him discussing just that so many overdoses aren't from an individual drug being dangerous, but rather the lack of education and understanding around compounds together, that you're taking too many things in the one direction. Maybe downers might be an opiate with a Xanax with alcohol. Yeah. You know, it's a nasty recipe. Whereas you said before, for example, if you're really, really drunk, and then that's where maybe a line of Coke might actually come to a place of benefit for you, because it's pulling you back into that center ground.
That's why there's like literally no sense with making drugs illegal. You know, from a safety point of view, from like having criminals point of view, and even like a financial point of view, the amount of money that they could generate. Because like I think pretty sure rehab in Australia is like 10 grand a month.
It ain't cheap.
No.
And that's probably level entry.
Yeah.
Like it can go up.
Definitely. There. So like if you had drugs legal, and then with the money that they make from selling drugs, you could then help people. Where now we have people addicted to drugs with no money generated to help them.
But again, that's all the government bullshit. It's like how when they increased the prices of cigarettes, and they said that they're going to use the increased tax value to go back into the healthcare system. I think less than 1% of that revenue did.
No, it's bullshit. Yeah. Do you, like, as a business owner in Melbourne, do you worry for your future here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly ain't getting any easier.
Yeah.
You know, we pay more tax than any other state.
Yeah.
In the country. But, you know, even...
Did you grow up in Melbourne?
No, I grew up in Tassie.
Yeah.
And then, you know, travelled a fair bit as a kid. and found myself in Melbourne to kind of get out of the small little bubble of which Tassie's beautiful, but it comes with its good and bad, like a lot of small places. But do I think my long-term future's here? No, probably not. And that's a large part is that I moved to Melbourne for the opportunities that exist with business in the biggest city in the country, because it would have been very hard to do what I wanted to do in Tassie, as it's always about probably 10 years behind. Very blue collar work, probably less disposable income, those kind of things. But from a lifestyle perspective, Melbourne's been great, the big city, but the thing I loved about Tassie is just, although it's a little bit colder, it's beautiful. It's a lot of outdoors, a lot of nature. Yeah. And, when I look at it really aligns with, I think, my message of what Living Rewired is meant to represent in terms of, physical connection with the earth. And when we look at the status of, whether it be metabolic health or whether it be mental health, we are sicker and fatter and more miserable than we have ever been. Yeah. And I look at the uprising of that, or the deterioration is probably a better word, of human well-being, and what's brought that on. Well, I think so much of it is tied in with our environment of the modern world and physical detachment from, the earth and the way that, we have done things naturally. We are still for a long time.
Yeah, we're still animals, even though. Yeah. Well, I mentioned that book to you ages ago, Lost Connections.
Yeah, I've got it written down here, Chasing the Scream and Lost Connections. Tell me about that book.
So Chasing the Scream's like, he talks about everything that we've spoken about with like drug use and the first, like from 100 years ago when drugs were illegal, and then the step-by-step process, like it was very like racially charged when they became illegal, and it was like it happened in America first, and they were like targeting, like, don't be around like African American people, they're all on drugs, and it was like a way to like turn like people who, like, when segregation was ending and slavery was done, it was their way of like targeting black people initially. And that was like, instead of saying like you're going to jail because you're black, you've got drugs on you, you've got alcohol, you're going to jail because of that. And it was their way of targeting that, and then it just kind of like escalated over time. But then Lost Connections talks, and then pretty much everything we've touched about talks about Portugal and all these things. But then Lost Connections is like the history of antidepressants, which is really interesting. And it would, like, because they were invented like shortly after World War II, and they were, everyone was depressed, and they were like, and their understanding was if you're depressed, you have like a lack of serotonin.
You must have a serotonin deficiency, and we're coming to realise now that ain't actually what's the issue here. No. And I've got it written down on my notes page. I've got another woman coming in after we're done here chatting, and she's a clinical psychotherapist and talks a lot about mental health from the nutritional space as well. And I'm definitely going to have a chat with her about SSRIs, because again, it's the blanket approach, man. You go to the doctor and this is where I'm trying to position myself in some ways, is that I have no illusion that I'm ever going to be the smartest person in the room, but I don't think the future of health requires a specialist. It requires a really good generalist and someone that understands the basic fundamentals, because you go to a doctor, what do? They put you on pills and prescribe you, or they might refer you to the psychologist. You go to the psychologist and that's great. You talk about your feelings and that has its place. But if there's no nutritional element in there as well, there's just these missing building blocks, and I think we need a really generalized approach to make positive change.
Well, especially like, saying there's, if you've got the human body, you've got like, everything going on within it, then also you have everything going on out of it as well. 100%. So like when antidepressants came around, it was shortly after World War II, and everyone was depressed, and they're like, oh, you must be the serotonin. And it's like, no, maybe they just went through a world war. And, there's this whole cultural shift that's existing. And they, quick fix problem was taking that, but the problem with antidepressants is you build up a tolerance. And, what are you going to do? Take more and more, and then the withdrawal.
Yeah, there's an adaptation to it. Yeah. And mate, there's all it's doing, it is a band-aid, because it's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It's just recycling synthetic serotonin around the brain. So what's going to happen when you stop taking it?
Yeah. And, in that book, there was a lady she was like a Chilean professor, and she was like, grew up in like the jungles with her family and was always really happy. And then she went to go study biology in London, and she said she was like depressed instantly while studying there, like living in the city, and she was like studying chimpanzees and bonobos at the zoo. And, you know, when you see them in the wild, they don't show any forms of mental health problems.
Well, you see some of those clips
Yeah.
that pop up of people like, I guess, interviewing cultures and societies in Africa and things like that, and you ask them, you know, if they're depressed, and they don't know what depression is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
They're just living where these are things that are in our society. Like, so, you know, if you just like you know, these animals like in the zoo that are like, you know, smacking their head against the wall, we are living like
Heartbreaking.
yeah, like we're living in a zoo like this. No wonder why we're depressed. There's no, it's like going through the motions, go here, get food, do your random task. Like, it's not how life should be. So it's like, of course, it's really difficult to do that. Like, everything is this.
But mate, that goes full circle back to what we're talking
Yeah.
about in school,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
nobody challenges that thought process. They're just
Definitely.
doing what they're told.
Do you feel like, because I try to be optimistic, like I feel like a shift is happening-ish.
No, I do. I
Like-
think the way we view a lot of things is we're positioned within a minority, but I do believe that there is a little bit of momentum.
Yeah.
I do believe that I think some of the events of the last few years have seen political parties shoot themselves in the feet
Yeah.
a little bit
Definitely.
by under maybe estimating, I don't know, the power or the intelligence of people and community.
Definitely. I think where power, because normally, you know, if you look like revolution and all that, it started with music and art.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you know, with what happened over the last few years with controlling businesses, the music and art scene, because I would say leftish wing, which are like, you know, the creatives, all that type of shit. But now I'm finding I disagree with like the left wing people. Because I'm like,
But
no.
is that part of the problem, to try and be categorized as one or the other?
Which is also part of
Yeah.
the problem, because now I'm like, you know, I was always like, you know, well, you know, come from like migrant family, like, you know, working class, you know, bit creative. You know, generally speaking, I should be left wing. But then I'm looking how like the left is operating, and I'm like looking at the world, people that are talking about freedom. You know, the government staying. My favorite government is the one that stays the fuck away out of my life. So looking at that, I'm like, wow, I'm actually, but I think everyone should be like that. They should be like looking at the picture, like who do you actually agree with, or are you just joining in with your group because that's your like assigned group?
Yeah, your sense of belonging. And
Yeah.
safety.
So because you know, a lot of, you know, conservatives, I guess, I'm like agreeing with them. You know, the world is a little bit lost. We do need a bit of like traditional. We need to go back to our roots a little bit.
Yep.
We are kind of like losing our way. And like, you know, where I'm not into censorship and I'm not for anyone.
And I think that's what I mean, like, to your question about like optimism.
Yeah.
And I think in that story I told in the initial lockdowns of really struggling mentally was because I'd lost that optimism, was very pessimistic about the future. So it is very hard to stay positive and feel motivated for anything when you feel like it's not going to fucking matter anyway.
Yeah.
But on the same flip side of that, you know, I ignorance is bliss, but I also don't believe in sticking your head in the sand just because it's easier.
Yeah.
You know, you
definitely.
want to know what's going on, but at the same time, you do need to. I personally, I can only speak for myself, have to hold a high level of personal responsibility for how much time I allow myself to be in the game and on the bench.
Yeah.
Because your reality is, like I said, where you choose to put your attention.
Definitely.
And I think if you're constantly opening the box of doom and gloom, this should come of no surprise that you lack the ability to feel optimistic about the future, whereas there still are many things that you can feel grateful and positive about, and I can't control everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, so what can I be doing today to improve my environment and circumstances that will be my own reality?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a tug of war. It's a compromise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I had a bit, I get like a bit too excited. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. I'm like, this shit, I want to like, and I try to do too much and change too much, and then I end up doing nothing. And I come into terms with like, you know, what I can actually do, who I can like affect, and also realizing like, if I don't look after myself in the process, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah. And
I'm just going to burn myself out. And like, you know, so the way I'm kind of approaching things is like, you know, I'm, my base before I do anything else is eating healthy, exercise, and then I can slowly add things around that.
Get
Because
the basics of human need.
Yeah.
Movement.
Yeah, and eating.
And
And
sunlight.
Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah, and I've, also realizing what type of human connection I want. Like, do I want to be, at a party, like saying hi to all these people that like, they're not bad, but like, do I really give a fuck about them? Or, one-on-one conversations where, they're like conversations that uplift me and that are like adding value to my life. And I'm like, no, they're the kind of things that I'm like leaning towards now, having like a nice dinner and having a good chat with someone, motivating people. And like, I would, even though the last few years were shit, but it got me exercising. I was never one to exercise before.
There's always a silver lining.
Yeah. Meditating, got much more deeper into meditating. And if I didn't get into meditation, I wouldn't have even worried about my physical health because like as I was meditating.
That's where you manifested its importance.
Well, yeah, and I could feel like, oh, my shoulder's actually a little bit stiff. Or like, oh, my hips are a bit sore.
That's cool.
Because I was becoming aware of my body and then I was like stretching more and then I'm like, I probably need to get stronger. Like if, I need to build up strength everywhere. Now I'm like, I train most days. Still haven't completely quit smoking. Getting there, baby steps.
Hey, day by day, bro.
But, all that, and I needed that to get like mentally strong. And like, to achieve my next few goals, like I need money. So I'm like, going to be a diesel mechanic studying for the next 3 years, which I never thought I could study. And, because like that's the harsh reality of the world. If you want things, you need money. And being in Melbourne, it's like, it's so hard to make money here.
Can be.
Yeah.
Can be. But man, it sounds like you're in a real good place.
Yeah.
And good on you.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing that with us, man. I think
it's
a good place to wrap up.
me.
It's always an enjoyment having a good chat with you.
Yeah.
So we'll do it again.
Definitely, man.
Legend. Thank you,
So
man.
good.
Cheers, guys.